Yeah, thank you all for showing up. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be here. Let's get started. As you said, this is a talk. I've been doing information security for about 13 years, and what I like to tell you about is, all right, that's not working. I don't know how to do slides. Okay, that's not gonna animate, but whatever. This talk, just to set expectations, this is not intended to disrespect or denigrate any place that I've worked for. This is sort of just a lighthearted journey. Maybe you can learn from some of my experiences for maybe people who are younger in the security field than I am. Maybe you can potentially also empathize or have been in the same places from the experiences that I'm going to try to share with you right now. Every place that I've worked, I've never regretted. All different places have their own strengths and weaknesses. So again, this is just a lot of, even though 13 years, a lot has changed in computer security. I am always kind of fascinated and bemused by how things, no matter how different things are in security, how things kind of always tend to stay the same a little bit. And I just crashed my, this is kind of my blessing and my curse with computer security is that I am really good at crashing programs. So, super convenient when I'm actually trying to find issues with software, not so convenient when I'm actually trying to give a presentation. So just to give a little bit of background, I'm going to use a few slides just to talk about who I am now, why you might actually want to give a damn about what I have to say. Right now, I am the data security czar at Flatiron Health, which really means that I work for a company that is managing a lot of data for cancer patients, very much into cancer research. So as you can imagine, it's very important to make sure that that data doesn't fall into the wrong hands, and also that that data is accurate. You don't want somebody's patient record getting modified and they get the wrong course of medication. You don't want somebody who's maybe it would be embarrassing or maybe ruin their career if their private patient data gets out. It's very valuable information, so I'm trying to keep that safe for this company. I also teach application security at NYU, so hopefully training up the next generation of people who are going to get into this field of computer security, hopefully not scaring them off too much. And I've also, in my spare time, I do a little bit of research, vulnerability research in terms of reverse engineering in .NET was kind of my old thing. Finding vulnerabilities in software or security appliances, such as data loss prevention, is something that I've done in recent history. So I started school in the year 2000, obviously been around for a few years, a decade or so. And around 2002, I realized that, just to give a little background about how I got into this whole path of all these weird different places, not weird, but this diverse array of places that I worked for, was around 2002, I was kind of looking for scholarship opportunities. And I realized that all of the stuff that I had been doing in high school just to like mess with my friends, and things that I did in college to that are probably, I think, past the statute of limitations, so I can tell you about them, like getting free graphing calculators, using SQL injection on coupon code sites. I didn't realize that you could actually do that to make money, like legally. So it was awesome. So what I did is, and it's still a thing that maybe some of you have heard about, it's called Scholarship for Service. They might have renamed it, where you work or you study computer security for 2 years in school, and then you have to work for the government for 2 years to kind of pay it back. Which kind of led to working for all of these different places. And this is why I kind of feel like this might be a little bit interesting and you might actually give a crap about what I've done, just because I've worked in a lot of different industries and I've seen a lot of different stuff. So US Army finding vulnerabilities in network appliances, writing exploits for the government. Oh, look how cool I am. Pivoting into the Federal Reserve. I know that that is something that is very polarizing, but making sure that people aren't messing with the nation's economy, the US nation's economy, NASDAQ as well, a stock exchange, making sure people aren't messing with the stock market, Citibank, Tumblr, protecting all the gifts. As you can see, there are a lot of GIFs. They're very close to my heart. I had a really great time at Tumblr. And now onto Flatiron Health, where I just described what I did already. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into a few stories, anecdotes, kind of things. I'm not really going to talk about how they pertain to a particular place that I worked, but it's kind of just when you've worked in security for more than for over a decade, and you've worked in as many places as I have in as many, it's just very fascinating to me how you can work in, like, you can work in the government, you can work in finance, you can work for a startup, you can work in the medical field, and despite that breadth of different organizations, even though how different it is and how much security, how fast security changes over the course of 10, 15 years, how much I see the same things over and over. So how many people here do bug hunting, find vulnerabilities, write exploits? Anyone? Do security, pen testing, things like that? Fine. All right, cool, pen testing. So there is a very, very rewarding, satisfying feeling that you get when you are bug hunting. You're going through code, you're reverse engineering, you're doing whatever, you're analyzing a system, you're doing whatever it is you have to do to find that, sweet, awesome, like, boom, there it is, like, I'm in, hacker moment of yours, right? And then some places you work, you don't get to tell anybody about that. This is actually the only anecdote that I'm going to talk about where I actually name the specific company I worked for. So my first job out of the Army, like I said, I was doing vulnerability research. They would give me a cool, fancy, expensive network appliance, put it in front of me and say, go buck wild, just go rage on it. And that was cool. I'm like, great. It's like, this is a very unique, awesome opportunity, right? I get to play with stuff that normally you don't get to play with, right? Unless you are going to pay for it and essentially deploy it in a network. So finding all these cool vulnerabilities, and then I would write the report, I would write the exploit, the proof of concept or whatever, and go back to my boss and say, here you go, I found this awesome stuff. Let's tell everybody how, awesome my brain is and the things that I found. And then he's like, okay. And then he would put it there. I'm like, you're not going to do anything with that. He's like, I can't. The thing about finding vulnerabilities in something that is deployed in a network that has that processes classified data, I don't know if this has changed now, but back then, so if I found a vulnerability in a network appliance that was installed in a network that processed classified data, that vulnerability became classified. And that meant you couldn't tell the person who produced the thing with the vulnerability in it unless they had somebody on their team who could fix it, who had that classification, and that classification for that specific organization. Because it's not like if you get a secret clearance for the Army, you get one across the board, right? So basically, I had this whole pile of look how cool I am. Like, please, mom, dad, get a magnet, put my cool stuff on the refrigerator, and they're like, no, honey, no. Very, very demoralizing. This is the only one, and this is why I was kind of hesitant as to why. It's a funny story, at least to me, looking back, but it's also, one of the reasons that I'm telling you all of these anecdotes is because I want to tell you what worked for me, what didn't work for me, how if I went back I could have done things differently to maybe be a little bit more effective in the challenges that were posed to me. This one, I really am not sure what I could have done to get around this conundrum that I found myself in, except maybe to tell them that I was only going to review tools that were produced by people who had classifications. Doesn't really seem feasible. Water. Okay. This next one is the anecdote or the situation that I've run into in multiple organizations, and I'm sure that pretty much, I would guess that maybe 75% at least people in the room have gone through this themselves, where, you start a new job, either it's, a full-time position, it's a gig doing a pen test or, some sort of consultancy, and you try to figure out what their technology stack is like. And you go in and they're like, oh yeah, I'll be a little bit specific about this. So there was one time I came in to a thing I was working on, and they're like, oh yeah, like show you around the office, show you where the coffee machine is, show you where the toilet is, so on and so forth. All right, let's sit you down at your workstation, get you set up. I'm like, okay, cool. They're like, all right, so you're, here's your temporary password, log in, and I go, boop, boop. Oh, it's Windows XP. It's Windows, there's a 7 and a 10 now, right? Like it's Windows XP. Okay, all right, okay, it's okay. Calm down. All right, log in, change your password, get your stuff set up. I'm like, all right, let's get it. They're like, let's get you into the email. All right, let me get into the email. Looking for the icon for Outlook or Outlook Express or whatever. Oh, we don't know. No, it's Lotus Notes. Help me, Jesus. But so and this when you get into that, when you see either again being on a gig or a full-time job or being exposed to a situation where you see old tech, you see the cobwebs forming on the solution, you kind of know that you're in for a lot of sets of challenges. The most obvious one being it is very hard to bootstrap or, kind of put a veneer on security on something that is so old and outdated, right? You don't have a lot of people who fixed it. You have a lot of technological debt in terms of, even if it was something that's built in-house, that person may have been retired, may have had a stroke, may have been hit by a bus. There are going to be challenges even, if they're willing to fix the problem, getting somebody who's capable and familiar with the system to fix it. But then you also have the problem where if a company or a team or whatever, some outfit has been using this old outdated technology, if they're still using it, that means they've been using it for a while. And that means that there's also a personal challenge, right? You have people who may be harder to convince because I've been doing this way for 15 years. I don't see why I need to, do anything different, like the whole if it ain't broke, don't fix it thing. But it's like, yeah, I mean, I guess it's technically ain't broke, but you've been driving that car since like the 60s and the undercarriage is all rusted and your muffler's held on with, what is it, a clothes hanger. That is the challenge that you get when you run into the cobwebbed larder or the cobwebbed pantry situation. Trying to get people to try new things is always a huge interpersonal challenge. And so the thing that this is something that I don't encounter a lot now because I've been working in startups for a while and everyone likes the new hotness, which can also be a problem, but we won't get into that right now. But it's really hard to retrofit security on something that's really old, and it's really hard to get people to break old habits, teach an old dog new tricks. So you really have to, and this is a challenge that we have in security so much, and it's a challenge, it's a mistake that people make all the time, is like security is not there to be your hall monitor. It's not there to, like slap you on the, get your hand away from the burning stove. It's there to try to help you. And that's really the kind of thing where you make friends with them first. And this is the mistake that I've made over and over, is not doing this, is you make friends with them first and then you try to get them to gently suggest that there might be a better way of doing things that isn't an operating system that is, how old is that Windows XP? It might be, I think I have nephews that are older than Windows XP. And I mean, I'm 35, so there's that. I wish this were vodka. Which actually kind of ties into the next scenario that I have, where, like I said, it's kind of hard to retrofit security onto an old legacy, very built out thing. We always talk about this when we talk about secure development lifecycle, right? It's easier to build something secure from the ground up than to get into that sort of leaning tower of Pisa Pisa situation where the building's already slanting and sinking into the earth and you have to figure out how to make it not do that anymore. And so sometimes you get into this scenario. The silver bullet and the disappearing budget. We don't really need to make our whole body clean. We can just slap a thing in there. Just put a WAF on it. Just put a WAF on it. If you like it, then you should have put a WAF on it. Wait, no. So, okay, yeah, we could, retool the web application so it doesn't have SQL injection and cross-site scripting, or we could buy a WAF. And then you have a WAF. And it's sort of like, the analogy that I use is sort of like when you try to buy, when you decide that you want a pet, you want or I shouldn't use a pet because that's kind of emotional. You decide you want a car, right? You decide you want a car and you go and you decide you want to get a used car. You don't want to get one of those new fancy, because you don't want to get a lease and deal with. So you go and you look on, the ads or whatever, however people buy cars. I live in New York. I don't know anything about cars anymore. And you say to the guy or the girl, the person who's selling the car, and you say, I'd like to take this car for a spin around the block. And I'd like to take it to a mechanic just to check under the hood. And they're like, no, dude, don't do that. Just give me the money. I'll take the car. And so you take the car home and then you realize, okay, I just bought a car and now I can do what I want to do. But I also noticed that, and I saved money by buying it used, but now I have to spend $100 because there's an oil leak. And I have to spend $500 getting the carburetor rebuilt. And these numbers are just coming out of my butt. But sometimes when you throw something into your network thinking it's going to solve all your problems, you're actually adding another thing that you need to babysit, right? You have another thing that you need to patch, you need to maintain, you need to integrate with your system, you need to understand how it works. Yeah, and so as you throw the silver bullet, the DLP, the WAF, I'm not dissing any of these technologies. They all have their place in appropriate appropriate uses. But when you're throwing these silver bullets because somebody bought you a nice steak dinner at RSA, you don't realize that, this is also more attack surface. This is also somebody who needs to care and feed your new little baby that you put into the network. But your budget goes down because money is not infinite. If there is a company where you have an unlimited security budget, you can email me. I would love to work with you. I think that's the Valhalla of the Valhalla for security engineers is the company that you can work for where there's an unlimited security budget. Okay, so you spent 10K on a WAF, but that's 10K that you can't use towards staffing, or that's somebody's bonus, or getting a consultant in to help you out, right? I'm ranting. This is something I feel very strongly about, as you can tell. So how do you deal with this, right? Hopefully what you need to do is nip this in the bud before it happens, because this is it is a human reaction to want a quick fix. It is a human reaction when you see something bad going on, or you see something that makes you worried that you want to make that worry go away. But you need to have a framework in place that will allow for rationality, right? You need to say, we identify a gap, we build requirements, this is the process we're going to. Nobody signs off on buying super fantastic magic boxes unless we go through these steps. Otherwise, it's sort of like when so over at Mandalay Bay, there's that great little shopping center. And a couple of days ago, I had too many Singapore slings. And I'm like, I'm going to buy some shoes. Kelly, you don't need no more shoes. No, it's like, you're going to go and you're going to buy a pair of sneakers. You're not going to look at the Louboutins. You're not going to look at the boots. You're just going to buy a pair of sneakers. And as you can see, I'm still wearing these crappy shoes. So, all right. This is one, and okay, so if you go out for drinks later and you understand the reference that I'm making, is the concept of the purple people eater. And I use that kind of in referring to there are two sides of this. There are working for a company that got acquired from a bigger company and having to deal with the intellectual debt or clash of knowledge that comes from now you're collaborating with somebody who may do something completely different. And also the opposite of being in the situation of a company that, ooh, shiny, I need that. Like, I want to buy this person has, or this company has an app that my customers would really love. Let's go get it. And then you go and you buy it. Just like the car analogy, you go buy the car or you go buy the puppy and you're like, this puppy has a debilitating blood disease that's going to cost me $500 a month so it can get, you know, transfusions or magic insulin, whatever. Has anyone worked for a company where they went out and bought something cool and shiny, like as an acquisition, saying we can put this into our portfolio, and then it turns out it is just rife with not secure? Anyone? No? So again, this is something that you need to have a framework in place so that you don't have your, you know, the people who are above you who hold the, you know, hold the wallet, who hold the coin, purse, whatever you want to call it, to make sure, okay, yeah, we want to buy this shiny. We want to buy this thing that's going to be really great, that's going to look really good for our investors, Melissa Mayer, that is going to, you know, really be a benefit for our organization, but maybe get some of your security people to kind of like kick the tires first to make sure that you're not going to spend the next year and 6 months going through code that only the people who got laid off understands and happens to be full of memory corruption, or happens to be impossible to configure because nobody really understands it anymore. And on the other side, and I don't know how much power a company that is getting bought has, but I think it would also be a consideration if you are actually working for a company that's about to be acquired, is to understand the ethics, not the ethics, but sort of the values in relation to security of the people who are about to acquire you. Is this somebody that I want to be in line with? I left Tumblr before the Verizon acquisition, but I know a lot of people, for example, with that acquisition were concerned because Tumblr and Verizon have very different values in terms of net neutrality. Now, that's not necessarily like completely a security issue, but you might want to think about, I would like to meet with the security team of our new overlords and see, is this going to completely change the way that I like to do security? Is this the right, are they going to do the right things for us? And then maybe think about how you're going to approach that challenge if you do have a conflict of values. There's always, you know, when you go from company to company, not that I've been bouncing around a lot, but if you've been in a lot of different companies as I have, you know that there are a lot of different ways to do security. Some are good, some are bad, some are good depending on the company that you're working for. Like what's going to work for NASDAQ isn't necessarily going to work for a Tumblr. And understanding these people are going to be the ones telling me what to do now. Do I like the way they do things? Do I agree with them? There may be things that they bring to the table that are great, amazing, innovative. They may have more money that you can use to get more resources, or put a cool new shiny that into your network that you've always wanted but you couldn't afford. Or they could be the kind of people who are like, oh yeah, so we're all going to go to Lotus Notes now. No. I'm going through these slides way too fast. All right, so let's talk about this one. This one actually, whoa, I just searched for that video game, that lawyer video game about, what is the name of this game? It's something, yeah. And I didn't realize there were clowns and Batman, so, okay. But let's talk about the times that I'm going to say we because I wasn't the only one getting threatened with lawsuits here. And this is not just particular to a job. This is also, you know, like I said before, I do research in my spare time. One of the recurring themes that I've said through a lot of these slides, if you're going to buy something or if you're going to acquire something, you know, buy a company or buy a product to put into your network, you really want to kick the tires, right? And that's not just in terms of seeing if it meets your requirements of what you want it to do, but also, and this is a thing that I don't think a lot of people typically do, or I haven't seen typically done, is you know, maybe pen test it a little bit, maybe like, you know, run it through IDA, or, you know, see, you're buying this thing. Is it secure? You're going to throw this thing in your network. Is the administration panel full of like vulnerabilities that I could teach like my 10-year-old nephew to find? Sometimes vendors don't like that. And it's actually very surprising to me because we've been doing the whole vulnerability disclosure debate since what, like the mid-90s or so on, where I don't know if anyone remembers back in the dark ages of finding or vulnerability disclosure, where, okay, you find a bug, and you're like, I want to do the right thing. I'm not just going to drop this on, you know, Usenet, or I'm not just going to drop this on the full disclosure mailing list. I want to do the right thing. I want to tell the vendor, give them a chance to fix it, and then I'll go out and let everybody know. And so you go on the website, they don't have a security contact, they have like the name of a salesperson, or they have some generic contact us form. So you fill it out, you let them know, and then like a week later, you get a cease and desist letter. Now that was the 90s. I didn't think that this was going to happen to me like 2 years ago. But when researching products, and this is not just, oh, I'm going to hack a bunch of things because I'm cool and I want to find ODE and blah, 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 and present at a conference, I was legitimately looking for a product that would solve a particular issue that my organization had. So I got a bunch of trials, and I started to evaluate them. I started to look through them. I found a bunch that looked really promising, that they did everything I wanted functionally, but they had some vulnerability issues. And one of the things when you pick something like that is not just, is it secure, does it meet my requirements, but how responsive are they? How fast are they going to fix a problem if I find a problem in their product? So I go, okay, I'm going to go to the vendor, I'm going to report this vulnerability. Go to the website, look, all right, there's no bug bounty. Well, that sucks. All right, there's got to be like a security or like a tech support. Oh, okay, so you have to be already a customer to log into the tech support portal to report a issue. All right, so I guess I'm going to just email somebody and pretend that I want to buy their stuff. All right, I email them, and then in 2015, email the client, say, hey, listen, I tried to find a security contact. I found a bug in your product. I just wanted to let you know so you could fix it because I know a lot of people use it. I'm trying to do the right thing. I gave you a free penetration test. You know, like I gave you free work, and then 3 days later, cease and desist. Like, you are violating the DCMA because you reverse engineered our product. Well, fuck you. So this is a lesson just one for the person doing the research, and one for the person who may be in a company that maybe has a little bit of an adversarial relationship with security researchers. I'm going to start with the people, with the vendors, the people who you're trying to sell a security product, right? You are producing something that you want people to buy because they want to be more secure, they care about security, and you are trying to convince them that this thing that they're going to shell out money for is going to make them better secure, reduce overall organizational risk, whatever buzzwords you want. Have a way for people to responsibly and easily disclose vulnerabilities. Don't make me have to hunt down and be receptive to that. Because here's the thing, and I shouldn't make this talk turn into a rant about the ethics of vulnerability disclosure or the efficacy of bug bounties, but if you're going to make people scared to report vulnerabilities to you, then they're not. And then who's going to have the vulnerability? Somebody else who's probably going to sell it, and then all your I shouldn't say the S word. All your stuff's going to get popped, and you're going to be like, oh man, I wish we had known about that earlier. You could have, but you didn't make it easy. I'm lazy, man. Like, I'm lazy. I'm sorry. Make it easy for me, and make it so I'm not scared that I'm going to get sued if I want to tell you about a vulnerability. Don't look a gift security audit horse in the mouth. And for the people on the other side, just be careful about who you're working with. Like, if you don't see that bug bounty, if you don't see that, oh yeah, here's a security contact that you can easily talk to and kind of explain to them, the issues or the concerns that you have, maybe you want to look somewhere else. Either maybe not as a researcher, but if you're somebody who's actually looking for something for your organization to make it better, if they don't have they haven't made those basic requirements, then they probably are going to be hard to work with in general. So I've talked about a lot of different scenarios. Hopefully you can empathize, or hopefully you've seen some of them, but what are the lessons learned? What could I have done differently? And one of the things that I really wish that if I could go back 13 years in time and start all over again is, one, security should be nice. Security should be the friend of the organization. I know it's kind of cool to come in guns blazing and be like, yo, I'm a hacker, I'm going to mess up your stuff, I'm going to ruin your day. Oh, bam, I put developers' tears in the jar because I'm cool and I'm badass. That's great, but you're not going to make a lot of friends and you're not going to get a lot of stuff fixed. Convince people that you are not there to call their babies ugly, to say this thing that you've worked 60 hours a week on is, a pile of crap because it has it has one cross-site scripting in it. Tell them that you take pride in your work, I take pride in my work, I am helping you to make your stuff better. Together we can make stuff better. Sometimes you have to put the fear in God with them, but you use that sparingly, right? It's sort of like, if every time I sit down to eat, somebody's like, yeah, Kelly, so you shouldn't eat so many carbs because carbs are like really bad for your blood sugar, and you should be eating more leafy greens and to get your cholesterol down because heart disease is the #1 killer of Americans, and I'm gonna be like, yeah, okay, hold on a second. What are you doing? Yeah, I'm covering this in mayonnaise. I'm also gonna cover this in bacon too, because screw you. Like, if you try to make people scared all the time, they're not gonna be scared ever. It's like, it's a psychological condition we call hypervigilance, where you eventually, so you see it a lot in skydivers, right? You jump out of a plane the first time, you probably pee your pants a little. You jump out of a plane like 30 times, you're just like, all right, yep, there's the ground. There's the ground, okay. Oh yeah, okay, cool. Foster a relationship. And also be nice. I've said this before, but be nice. And also, what is the other thing that I would want to learn? Have a game plan. I am kind of the kind of person who is just kind of like, I need to do something. I'm going to go in. I'm just going to like kind of wing it, which is kind of like this talk, as you can tell. No, but write things down, and then you can go back and refine them easier. If you keep a record of what you're doing, if you keep a record of the decisions that you've made and why you've made them, going back and saying, okay, yeah, why did we decide to not upgrade from Windows XP? Oh, right, because the guy said we couldn't afford to. Is that really something that maybe I could have gone back and maybe argued a little harder for? Maybe my priorities could have been shifted to, from something to something else. Just I think always be conscientious, always be cognizant, and always know why you are doing what you're doing. And the other thing is love what you're doing. I think the only times when I've regretted anything in my career is when I've done something because I thought it would look cool on my resume rather than doing something that I thought I would love. I love hands on the keyboard, making things fall apart, putting them back together. I do not like checking things off on a list. I don't like doing compliance. It's perfectly fine if you do, it's just not for me. Some people hate coding. Some people hate staring at, IDA or, an IDE for 5 hours a day, 8 hours a day. Figure out don't do something because you think it's cool or because you're going to get cred for it. Do something because you love it. It'll help you from burning out. And also, don't drink so much. Come on. My liver, it hurts so bad. All in all, we all bitch, we all snark. I think it's very cathartic. I think it's cathartic to do things like this where we go back and revisit, kind of laugh at, laugh at the silly things that happened, laugh at some of our frustrations. That's great. That's awesome. The thing that I don't want people to take away is that I think information security sucks. I think we're all hopeless. I think that every place I worked was a complete crap show. I don't. I think that all of the challenges that we go through, all of the things that we have to work extra hard for just makes our gains, our wins, our successes even more sweet. If everything came easy to us, it wouldn't feel so good. And that's what I love about computer security, information security, cybersecurity, whatever you want to call it. It's challenging, it's hard, it's a lot of different things that we have to figure out on our own. We're solving new problems all the time, and that's why everything is awesome. If anyone has any questions, want to tell me how bad this talk sucked, you can find me on Twitter as Aloria. My LinkedIn is the URL Taco Tuesday, and my email is georgesims@jukesmychronics.com. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to take them. Otherwise, I'll let you get a few minutes closer to drinking time.